Hi, my name's Jim Daly, president of Focus on the Family, and I want to welcome you to the journey that you're about to experience through the Family Project. Our desire is really to reintroduce and to encourage people who know that God's design for the family is the direction for us to go. When you look at God's design for the family, the thing that catches my attention is that God has put this expression in place, this institution in place to show his character and to hopefully point each of us into a relationship with Jesus Christ. In the Family Project, we want to reassert this claim that God has done this with a purpose, that he's done it in order to point us to him. And it starts in the family, where you learn love, where you learn sorrow, where you learn healing. And we think it's time in this culture to reorient all of us to God's wonderful design for the family.
I always believed in traditional family. Man and woman marry. They remain committed for a lifetime. But every day in the media, I seem to be told that I've got it wrong. So I have to ask the question, does culture have it right? Or is there something better? Is there a way to do family that really works? Join me on a journey of discovery as we literally search the world for answers. What is family? I mean, with so many variations out there, there's one group of society who have never experienced God's design for family at all. And then there's another group of people who don't believe that there's even such a thing as design for family. And they think there's a new way of doing it. And then there's those of us who do believe in a design, but we're told by the culture every day that we've got it wrong. So is there a design? Can we know that design? And if there is, what would happen if we chose to live within it? Hi, I'm Tim Cicerich, and I'll be your guide through this journey called The Family Project, a divine reflection. During this series, I want to explore and hopefully discover God's design, his fundamental design for and of family. Some of you may know me already from the documentary film, Irreplaceable, where I travel the world to find out if family really does matter. If you haven't seen it yet, don't worry, there's still plenty of time. At heart, I'm a family man. I'm married to my childhood sweetheart. We have 5 amazing children, and I work with Focus on the Family most recently in my home country of New Zealand. Now that we have the formalities out of the way, let's get started on our journey.
Unlike the animals, we don't just exist, we have the question why we exist. We can't avoid this question.
Where did we come from? Where are we going? What's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of life?
We long to be part of something bigger than ourselves. I know I do. What is your individual destiny? Or is it just some form of restlessness? No matter how much you have or don't have, is there something more just over the horizon? Something to be achieved, acquired, possessed? Or is it something else entirely?
How do we fit in? What does our life mean? That's at the heart of every question we ask.
One of the things that makes us unique is that we are natural-born question askers. Any parent knows that. I mean, no parent has sat down and given their children a lesson on how to ask questions.
Everyone is looking for, what is the ultimate reality that defines my life, that is responsible for this universe, that explains the meaning of existence?
I sat down with the authors of the series and I asked them if there was something that we could use, a piece of art, a piece of writing, anything, as a starting point for our quest, our journey into the family. And they took me to a painting that is considered a masterpiece by some. And others, well, let's just say it's an acquired taste. The painting is done by French artist Paul Gauguin, and it was the title that intrigued them the most.
Paul Gauguin was, by his own estimation, the brightest, most intelligent man, insightful, that ever lived, that ever took a human breath. But he didn't like his quiet, kind of domestic life. He wanted to be a painter. He became a painter. And finally, he just completely rejected and left his family and took off to the islands to find kind of a pure life.
Just considering this well-known picture by Paul Gauguin, D'où venons-nous? Que sommes-nous? Où allons-nous? You know, where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? It's a summary of what he had found in Tahiti, where he'd gone as a kind of self-imposed exile from the over-civilized world of Paris in search of the pure, the natural human being in an attempt to unite himself with that natural, the forces of nature which he thought would be flowing through these beautiful creatures. He didn't find love, and he didn't find the meaning of life, nor did he come to belong. All these attempts to flee from what you are to another world end up as failures.
What we know is that as a boy, he was taught by priests these catechetical questions. Where do we come from? We are made in the image of God. What are we? Yes, indeed. We are bearers of that likeness. And you can see in that painting his loss of faith in that original Christian answer. Because he has people being born, that questioning figure in the middle, looking up, wondering, asking, but then that idol, not the image of Jesus.
What is interesting is that there is an idol in this painting, standing in the background, but all the figures are turned away from that idol. It's as though it has produced nothing.
And it's as if the painting communicates that for these big questions, these yearning questions that every human asks, there are no answers to them. Kind of an existentialism in art. But the thing is there are answers to these questions. Where do we come from? Who are we? Where are we going? Christianity profoundly and beautifully and deeply answers those questions for the seeking human being.
Inside each and every one of us is this inner urge, an inner desire to be part of something. We yearn for connection. We long for what we were created to enjoy. What do you yearn for? Where do you belong? How would you define home?
Where do I belong? Oh, that's a very good question. I think I probably belong where the people I love are.
Belong to a family which is very old, strong family in Bethlehem, and this is something to be proud of.
What makes me significant? Being a mother and a wife means I'm significant in somebody else's life, and what gives me significance is my family.
Every human being yearns for longing and significance, even if they don't know what it is that motivates them. I think at the very heart of what it means to be a human is to yearn for longing and significance, for meaning.
Every human person is asking, who do I fit with? Who do I belong to?
God had a plan, and he had a plan at even a molecular level. We are designed to belong. We're designed to be in community with him, in relationship with him, in relationship with each other. And part of life is not only belonging and being in community, but finding out what is my mission and my purpose.
Well, the most basic yearning of humans is to connect. You know, when a baby is born, the first thing they're looking for is someone out there to connect with. What we know is that never ends throughout the course of life. And it's the basic sense of connection that not only gives us our deepest sense of meaning, I mean, our deepest longing is to know and be known. And it's so interesting how when people don't have a sense of belonging and connection, then they'll try to find meaning in all sorts of things that'll never give it to them. A career, which is more of a purpose than a meaning, or activities or possessions. But basically, the meaning of life is fundamentally found in love.
There is one common thread that you will find amongst people on all corners of the globe, and it is the desire to be loved. It is the desire to love. It is the desire to be known, and it is the desire to know. And I believe that is a value that is imprinted upon us by an eternal God, that we desire to be in relationship, to be in fellowship.
Every human being has a sense of a need to be needed, or a desire to be wanted. And the sense of need springs from the sense of desire for purpose. And so it raises the question, where do I fit?
From earliest ages, Erik Erikson, the well-known child psychologist, child development specialist, he said that every child needs to have what he calls a sense of industry. They have to have this feeling of we're doing something, we're accomplishing something. And that's not just for fun, humans need that. Think about people in a concentration camp, that one of the ways that they break them down is, one, they put them in solitary confinement, the sense of belonging, but another is they give them meaningless labor. Like today you're going to move this pile of rocks over there, and then the next day you're going to move it back. That crushes people because they realize that my life has no meaning, my work has no meaning and significance, and we cannot live without that.
I'm from Poland, Michigan, Germany,
San Francisco,
Venezuela, Atlanta.
I'm from India,
Bowie, Maryland, St. Petersburg.
I'm standing on the shore of the Aegean Sea where Odysseus, hero of Homer's Odyssey, had finally finished the battle at Troy. He too stood by the seaside just as I am now, and he longed for one thing, to travel home, to go home. There are three things that define us. Let's look at them. We long for a place to call home. What causes us to yearn for home? Are we somehow attached to a piece of land? To our homeland? Tribes inhabit pieces of land. Wars are fought over land. We're even identified when we travel by what land we belong to.
We have a need for home. Home is one of the most important of our experiences. It's where we come from, and it's where we're going to, we feel.
And God placed the first two human beings, Adam and Eve, in a garden, in a particular place. That was their place. And so connection with the land, connection with a place, connection with a physical and geographical identity is very important to who we are.
Culture is our next connecting point. How do you celebrate or enjoy ceremony in your life? For example, how do people worship God throughout the world? What adds flavor and uniqueness to your life? Language, music, costume, ritual.
Every human society has a culture. Think about where you would like to raise your kids. Downtown Las Vegas, in the brothel area of Thailand, or a nice rural farm area in Italy. You know, each of those are an ethos, if you will, of a culture. And some cultures are good, some cultures are not so good. We tend to like to think today in our multicultural thinking that no, all cultures are equal. No, there are some cultures that are better than others, that enhance our human well-being and who we are as people. There are those cultures that take away from it. You know what? That's how we value good and bad cultures. But those cultures shape us for good and for bad. It's like the water and the air around us.
But what else defines us besides the yearning for place in our familiar culture? What or who defines our names, our identities, and far more likely than not, even the way we look?
Family matters because we are social creatures. You know, humans were made to live in little groups. And the first little group is the family.
People have lived in extended family, extended clan sort of arrangements, and there's a reason for this. It's because those sorts of arrangements do a better job of protecting the individual than do sort of secular ideas about how rugged we can all be if we're striking off on our own.
We get our worldview most often like we get a cold. We just catch it from our environment, right? So the environment that we are initially brought into is our family.
The really great thing about family is it's the first place that God gives us where we are loved by others, where we're unconditionally accepted by others, where we have to learn to be patient and consider other people. Family does not allow us to remain selfish.
Boy, if you don't know you're selfish, then you have children, it will become very clear. I am very selfish, and it became very clear to me once I had children.
And we've got such an awesome example in God. I mean, here he sent his son to die. I mean, just the sacrifice, you know, the way that Christ made a point to say that I didn't come here to be served, I came here to serve. That's what creates significance, is when I'm able to love and to do it well wholeheartedly.
And family begins to shape how one sees themselves, how one sees the world, how one sees their relationship with the world, how one sees the value of other people.
The family was the way in which knowledge, moral capital, social know-how is passed on from one generation to the next.
Chuck Swindoll was one of my mentors, and he had a great statement. He said, family is where life makes up its mind. And I really like that, because the family is God's, I don't know, sort of training program in a way to find out what are your core values, why are you on the planet, what's important to you, how do you relate, how do you connect, how do you trust, how do you solve problems, how do you find out what you're good at, what your passions are, how do you find out how to have good friendships and good peer relationships and those sorts of things.
I think one of the most insightful, I think even brilliant novelists of the last couple of decades is a Canadian by the name of Douglas Coupland. In 1996, Polaroids from the Dead, just a collection of essays. He had an essay in there that he lamented what he called the denarrated nature of our culture. He says, it is possible to grow up today with no religion, no politics, no ideology, no connection to anything bigger than yourselves. God himself lives in a story, and he has made us to live in a story. And for this denarration that is the cancer of our age, we need to rediscover a story, and a story big enough to live in. But not just a story big enough to live in, it should be a story that we're willing to die for. Because if it is not meaningful enough for us to die for, it is certainly not worth living for.
What is your story? And is it a story that you are not only willing to live for, but willing to die for? Something to consider as we continue our journey together. And as we look at all of creation, how are we unique? What is God's purpose and design for us? Something that we'll explore in the next session.
All of creation is an image of God in the sense that the trees evoke his splendor and majesty, the skyline evokes his infinity, and yet you and I Our crown, in the sense of our dignity, is the closest we can get to who that God is.
To be created in the image of God means that we have the unique and glorious attribute that no other created entity or species has, and that is that we are image bearers of the Most High God.
I'm Tim Cicerich, and you're part of the Family Project.
To dig deeper, visit FamilyProject.com.